Settle yourself comfortably now, dear listener, and allow your breathing to slow as we journey together back through the corridors of time. Close your eyes if you wish, and let the modern world fade away like morning mist upon the Thames. We are traveling to the year 1887, to the ancient town of Reading in Berkshire, where the River Kennet meets the Thames, and where our story gently unfolds. The first light of an April morning in 1887 creeps slowly across the Berkshire countryside, painting the sky in the softest shades of pearl and rose. The air carries that particular quality of an English spring dawn, cool and fresh, with just a hint of the warmth that promises to come with the advancing day. Dewdrops cling to the emerging leaves of the elm trees that line the London road, each one catching and reflecting the early light like tiny prisms. At the turnpike gate, just outside the ancient boundaries of Reading town, stands a modest but well-maintained toll house. Built of warm red brick in the Gothic Revival style that has become so fashionable in recent decades, it features pointed arch windows with diamond pane glass that catches the morning sun. Ivy, carefully trimmed to frame rather than overwhelm, climbs one corner of the building, its new spring growth a vivid green against the weathered brick. This is the domain of Thomas Hartwell, toll collector for the Reading Turnpike Trust these past 15 years. At 52 years of age, Thomas has witnessed the great changes sweeping through England in this latter part of our Queen Victoria's glorious reign. The railways have come, bringing their smoke and speed, yet the old roads remain vital arteries of commerce and communication, and Thomas takes pride in his role as keeper of this important gateway. The brass alarm clock on Thomas's bedside table chimes softly at 5:30, its gentle bell barely disturbing the profound quiet of the early morning. Thomas opens his eyes slowly, taking a moment to orient himself in the familiar comfort of his bedroom. The room is simple but scrupulously clean, a testament to the Victorian belief that cleanliness stands next to godliness. Rising from his iron-framed bedstead with its horsehair mattress and warm woolen blankets, Thomas's feet find the braided rag rug that his late wife Elizabeth had made some 20 years past. The texture is familiar and comforting beneath his bare feet. The air in the room carries a faint scent of lavender from the sachets tucked between his linens, a practice he maintains faithfully as Elizabeth had taught him, for lavender not only provides pleasant fragrance but is believed to ward off moths and promote restful sleep. Thomas lights the oil lamp on his washstand, the warm yellow glow pushing back the pre-dawn darkness. The washstand itself is a piece of solid mahogany furniture, its marble top cool to the touch even in summer. Upon it sits a blue and white transfer-printed ceramic basin and matching water pitcher, decorated with scenes of the English countryside. These were wedding gifts, and Thomas treats them with particular care. He pours water from the pitcher into the basin, the water drawn from the well behind the toll house the evening before and left to settle overnight. The sound of water falling into the ceramic basin creates a gentle, musical note in the quiet morning. The water is cold, bracingly so, but Thomas believes, as do many of his contemporaries, that cold water washing promotes vigor and good health. Taking up a piece of good Bristol soap, Thomas works up a lather between his hands. The soap, made with tallow and scented with coal tar, has that distinctive sharp, medicinal smell that speaks of cleanliness and respectability. Coal tar soap has become increasingly popular since the recent discoveries about germs and disease prevention. Though Thomas doesn't fully understand the science that the learned doctors speak of, these microscopic creatures they call bacteria, he has observed that regular washing with good soap seems to keep illness at bay. He washes his face thoroughly, the cold water bringing full wakefulness. His movements are methodical, almost ritualistic, first the forehead, then the cheeks, carefully around the eyes, and finally the neck. He pays particular attention to behind his ears, remembering his mother's constant admonishment from childhood that a gentleman must never neglect those hidden places where dirt might accumulate. After patting his face dry with a length of huckleback linen towel, its textured weave perfect for absorbing moisture, Thomas turns his attention to his teeth. Dental care in 1887 is a matter of great concern, for tooth decay can lead not only to terrible pain but also to dangerous infections. Thomas reaches for his tin of tooth powder, a mixture he purchases from Mr. Williamson, the chemist on Broad Street. The tooth powder contains precipitated chalk, powdered orris root for sweetness, and a small amount of carbolic acid for its antiseptic properties. Using his bone-handled toothbrush, the bristles made from Siberian boar hair, Thomas carefully cleans his teeth. The taste is chalky and slightly bitter, but not unpleasant. He has been fortunate to keep most of his teeth, unlike many of his age who have had to resort to the painful services of the tooth drawer or the new dental surgeons with their frightening drills. Thomas rinses his mouth with a solution of salt water, another practice he learned from his mother. The salt, he has been told by Dr. Morrison, who occasionally stops at the toll gate, helps to strengthen the gums and prevent putrefaction. He gargles gently, the salt water creating a cleansing sensation in his throat. Now comes the ritual of shaving, a practice that requires both skill and patience. Thomas stoops his straight razor on the leather strap hanging beside the washstand, the rhythmic sound of steel against leather creating an almost meditative rhythm. The razor, made of finest Sheffield steel, was his father's, and Thomas maintains it with religious devotion, knowing that a sharp blade is not only more effective but safer than a dull one. He works up a lather with his shaving soap, using his badger hair brush in circular motions until a rich, creamy foam develops. The brush, soft and luxurious against his skin, was a considerable expense, but Thomas views it as an investment in his daily comfort and appearance. A toll collector must present a respectable appearance, for he represents the authority of the Turnpike Trust. With careful strokes, he removes the night's growth of whiskers, the blade gliding smoothly across his skin with a soft scraping sound. He has maintained the same style of side whiskers for the past decade, not the elaborate mutton chops that some favor, but neat and well-trimmed whiskers that frame his face respectably. His chin and upper lip remain clean-shaven, as befits a man of his professional standing. After shaving, Thomas applies a small amount of bay rum to his face. The astringent sting is momentary, replaced by a pleasant warming sensation and the spicy, clean scent that will linger throughout the morning. Bay rum, imported from the West Indies, has antiseptic properties that help prevent infection from any tiny nicks the razor might have made. Thomas then attends to his hands, examining them carefully in the lamplight. Hands, he knows, are vectors for disease transmission, though the exact mechanism remains a subject of debate among medical men. He scrubs them thoroughly with soap and a small nail brush, paying particular attention to the nails themselves. His work handling coins and papers all day means his hands are constantly exposed to whatever maladies the traveling public might carry. The washing complete, Thomas dresses in his workday attire. First, his cotton combination undergarments, a relatively new innovation that combines vest and drawers in one piece, providing warmth and protecting his outer clothes from bodily oils and perspiration. Over this, a white cotton shirt, carefully starched and ironed by Mrs. Patterson, who takes in laundry. The starch not only provides a crisp appearance but also creates a barrier that prevents dirt from penetrating the fabric too deeply. His dark wool trousers are held by braces, suspenders, as some of the younger generation have begun calling them. The wool has been brushed carefully to remove any dust or lint. His waistcoat, also of dark wool, features the brass buttons bearing the insignia of the Turnpike Trust. These buttons Thomas polishes weekly with a mixture of salt and vinegar, maintaining their bright shine. Before leaving his bedroom, Thomas opens the window just a crack, despite the cool morning air. The miasma theory of disease may be giving way to new ideas about germs, but Thomas still believes in the importance of fresh air for maintaining health. The sweet morning air flows in, carrying with it the scent of apple blossoms from the orchard behind the toll house and the distant sound of a cockerel crowing to greet the dawn. Descending the narrow stairs, Thomas enters the main room of the toll house, which serves as both his office and sitting room. The space is modest but comfortable, with whitewashed walls that help reflect the limited light and make the room feel larger. The floor, made of white oak planks worn smooth by decades of footsteps, creaks gently under his weight, a familiar, comforting sound that speaks of the building's age and solid construction. The fireplace dominates one wall, its cast iron grate and surrounds decorated with a pattern of acanthus leaves. Thomas kneels before it, his joints protesting slightly, a reminder of his advancing years and the dampness that seems to settle in his bones during the spring months. He has been taking a tonic of willow bark tea for the rheumatic pains, following the advice of old Mrs. Whitmore, who knows all the traditional remedies. Building the fire is a practiced ritual. First, he cleans out yesterday's ashes with a small shovel and brush, depositing them in a metal bucket to be later spread in the kitchen garden, ash being excellent for improving the soil. He crumples pages from yesterday's Reading Mercury, the local newspaper, creating loose balls that will catch easily. Over this, he arranges thin kindling wood, crossed in a pattern that allows air to flow freely. From the coal scuttle, he selects several small pieces of coal, placing them strategically atop the kindling. Coal has become the preferred fuel, burning hotter and longer than wood, though it requires skill to manage properly. The sulfurous smell that accompanies the lighting of a coal fire has become one of the defining scents of the Victorian age. Thomas strikes a lucifer match, another modern convenience that has made fire starting so much easier than the old flint and steel method. The match flares to life with a sharp crack and the acrid smell of phosphorus. He touches it to the newspaper in several places, watching as the flames catch and begin to spread to the kindling. Soon, the coal begins to glow, and warmth starts to radiate into the room. While the fire establishes itself, Thomas attends to the oil lamps. Though gas lighting has come to the main streets of Reading, the toll house remains dependent on oil lamps and candles. He trims the wicks carefully with small scissors, ensuring they are even to prevent smoking. The lamp chimneys, which he cleaned yesterday evening with crumpled newspaper and a splash of vinegar, gleam clearly. Clean chimneys are essential not only for good light but also to prevent the accumulation of soot that could pose a fire hazard. In the corner of the room stands Thomas's pride, a tall case clock made by a Reading clockmaker in the previous century. Its steady tick-tock provides a constant rhythmic backdrop to life in the toll house. Thomas winds it carefully every Sunday, a ritual he has maintained without fail. The clock not only tells time but also serves as a barometer of the toll house's health. When its rhythm is steady and true, all is well with the world. The morning routine continues in the small kitchen at the back of the house. Here, the cast iron range squats like a benevolent black beast, its fire banked from the night before. Thomas opens the dampers and adds fresh coal, coaxing the fire back to full life. The range serves multiple purposes: cooking, heating water, and warming this part of the house. Its management requires skill and attention. For a range that burns too hot wastes fuel and can damage the iron, while one that burns too cool will not perform its functions properly. While waiting for the kettle to boil, Thomas steps out the back door into the small kitchen garden. The morning air is fresh and cool against his face, carrying the green scent of growing things. The garden, though modest, is meticulously maintained. Neat rows of vegetables promise future harvests: cabbages, turnips, carrots, and potatoes, the staples of a working man's diet. Along the borders grow herbs, both culinary and medicinal. The lavender is just beginning to show its purple spikes, while the rosemary bush, hardy and evergreen, provides year-round seasoning and medicine. Thomas picks a few leaves of peppermint, crushing them between his fingers to release their invigorating scent. These will go into his morning tea, for peppermint is excellent for settling the stomach and clearing the head. The small physic garden in the corner contains plants specifically for medicinal use. Feverfew for headaches, comfort for bruises and sprains, foxglove for the heart, though this must be used with great care, and willow for pain and fever. Thomas learned the use of these plants from his mother and grandmother, knowledge passed down through generations before the modern apothecaries and their bottled medicines became common. Returning inside, Thomas finds the kettle beginning to steam. He measures out tea leaves into the brown ceramic teapot, good Ceylon tea. Not the cheapest but not the most expensive either. A toll collector must live within his means while maintaining respectability. The ritual of tea making is precise. First, warm the pot with a splash of hot water, swirl and discard. Add the tea leaves, 1 spoonful per cup plus 1 for the pot, as the saying goes. Pour the boiling water over the leaves and let steep for exactly 5 minutes. While the tea steeps, Thomas prepares his breakfast. From the larder, he retrieves a loaf of bread baked 2 days ago by Mrs. Patterson's daughter, who supplements the family income with her baking. The bread, made with good wheat flour, has a firm crust and dense, satisfying crumb. He cuts 2 thick slices with the bread knife, its serrated edge sawing through the crust with a satisfying sound. He toasts the bread on a long-handled fork held before the fire, watching carefully to achieve an even golden brown. The smell of toasting bread fills the kitchen, one of the most comforting aromas known to humanity. From a covered crock, he retrieves butter, which he keeps cool in the larder. The butter, purchased from a local dairy, is sweet and fresh, with none of the rancid taste that speaks of poor storage or adulteration. A pot of marmalade, made from Seville oranges and put up last January, provides a touch of sweetness and luxury to the simple meal. The preservation of foods is a crucial skill in this age before refrigeration, and Thomas takes pride in his small store of preserved goods, jams, pickles, and chutneys that provide variety and nutrition throughout the year. As he eats his breakfast, Thomas reviews his ledger from yesterday, making notes in his careful copperplate hand. Each vehicle that passes through the toll gate must be recorded, its type, destination if known, and toll paid. The trust requires meticulous records, and Thomas has never been found wanting in his bookkeeping. By 7 o'clock, Thomas has opened the toll gate for the day's business. The first travelers are usually local farmers heading to Reading's markets, their carts loaded with produce, eggs, and dairy products. Thomas knows most of them by name, exchanges pleasantries about the weather and crops, and efficiently collects the tolls. This morning, he notices young Timothy Brewster driving his father's cart, the boy's face flushed and his eyes bright with what appears to be fever. Thomas feels a flutter of concern. Fever can herald many things, from a simple cold to something far more serious. "Morning, young Timothy," Thomas says kindly, accepting the toll money while observing the boy closely. "You're looking a bit peaked this morning, lad." "Just a touch of something, Mr. Hartwell," the boy replies, coughing into his sleeve. "Mother gave me some willow bark tea, but Father says the spring vegetables won't wait." Thomas nods understandingly but makes a mental note. Disease spreads quickly in their close-knit community, and awareness is the first defense. After Timothy passes through, Thomas washes his hands thoroughly with carbolic soap at the pump beside the gate. The carbolic, with its distinctive medicinal smell, has become increasingly popular since Joseph Lister's discoveries about antiseptic properties. The morning progresses with steady traffic. A mail coach bound for London thunders through, its 4 horses breathing heavily, their flanks steaming in the cool morning air. The coach passengers, glimpsed briefly through the windows, look weary from travel. Public conveyances are notorious vectors for disease transmission, with strangers pressed close together for hours, sharing the same air and often the same ailments. Around mid-morning, Dr. Edmund Morrison arrives in his gig, returning from a night call at one of the outlying farms. Thomas has great respect for Dr. Morrison, one of the new generation of medical men who embrace both traditional wisdom and modern scientific discoveries. "Good morning, Doctor," Thomas greets him, noting the fatigue in the physician's face. "A difficult night?" "The Pemberton baby," Dr. Morrison replies, rubbing his eyes. "Croup. Touch and go for a while, but I think the crisis has passed. Steam inhalations and a mustard plaster seem to help." Thomas nods sympathetically. Croup is a terror for parents, the barking cough and struggling breath frightening to witness. Young Timothy Brewster passed through earlier looking feverish, he mentions. "Might be worth checking on the family if you're heading that way." Dr. Morrison makes a note in his small leather notebook. "Thank you, Thomas. Your observations are always valuable. You see everyone who passes through Reading. You're like an early warning system for the health of our community." This acknowledgement pleases Thomas greatly. He has come to understand his unique position as toll keeper. He observes the ebb and flow of health and sickness in the district, noting patterns that might escape others. "Doctor, might I ask your opinion on something?" Thomas ventures. "I've been reading in the newspaper about these new ideas regarding germs and disease. They say diseases might be caused by tiny creatures too small to see. What's your view on the matter?" Dr. Morrison's face lights up with enthusiasm, despite his fatigue. "Ah, you're referring to the germ theory of disease. Fascinating developments, Thomas. Men like Pasteur in France and Koch in Germany are proving that many diseases are indeed caused by microscopic organisms, bacteria, they're called. It's revolutionizing how we think about prevention and treatment." He continues, Warming to his subject, consider how Semmelweis in Vienna discovered that childbed fever could be prevented simply by doctors washing their hands with chlorinated lime solution. Or how John Snow traced a cholera outbreak in London to a single contaminated water pump. These discoveries suggest that cleanliness and hygiene are even more important than we previously thought. Thomas listens intently, absorbing this information. So the old practices of washing and keeping clean, they were right all along, even if we didn't understand why. Precisely. Dr. Morrison agrees. Your grandmother's insistence on cleanliness, the old wisdom about fresh air and sunshine, much of it aligns with what we're now learning scientifically. Though we must be careful to distinguish between useful traditions and mere superstition. After the doctor passes through, Thomas reflects on their conversation. The world is changing rapidly, with new discoveries challenging old beliefs, yet often confirming ancient wisdom in unexpected ways. Thursday is Thomas's bathing day. While daily washing of face, hands, and essential areas is standard practice, a full bath remains a weekly ritual for most Victorians. The public bathhouse on Castle Street in Reading provides facilities for those without adequate bathing arrangements at home, and Thomas has been a regular patron for years. After closing the toll gate at noon for his weekly half-day holiday, Thomas prepares for his bathhouse visit. He packs his bathing satchel with care, a fresh change of underlinens, his personal soap, for while the bathhouse provides soap, Thomas prefers his own, a rough Turkish towel for drying, and a small bottle of bay rum for after his bath. The walk into Reading takes 20 minutes at a comfortable pace. The road is busy with afternoon traffic, delivery carts, private carriages, and pedestrians going about their business. Thomas enjoys these walks, observing the changes in the town as it grows and modernizes. New buildings are rising everywhere, their red brick faces fresh and unmarked by soot. Telegraph wires now stretch between poles along the main streets, carrying messages at lightning speed. The bathhouse, built 10 years ago by public subscription, is an imposing building of yellow brick with stone facings. Its facade features elaborate carved details celebrating the virtues of cleanliness and health. Above the main entrance, a Latin motto reads Mens sana in corpore sano, a healthy mind and a healthy body. Inside, the atmosphere is warm and humid, filled with the sound of running water and echoing voices. The entrance hall, with its tiled floor and walls, gleams with cleanliness. Mr. Hendricks, the bath superintendent, greets Thomas warmly. Afternoon, Mr. Hartwell. Your usual second-class bath? Yes, please, Mr. Hendricks. Second-class baths offer privacy and reasonable comfort without the luxury of the first-class establishments. Thomas pays his sixpence and receives a token and a clean, if somewhat threadbare, towel to supplement his own. The bath attendant, a sturdy young man named George, leads Thomas down a corridor lined with individual bathing rooms. The sound of water running and splashing echoes from behind closed doors. George opens door number 7, revealing a small, clean room containing a zinc bathtub, a wooden chair, and hooks for clothing. I'll start filling her up, Mr. Hartwell, George says, turning the brass taps. You want it good and hot today? Moderately warm, please, George. Too hot and it weakens the constitution. This is a matter of some debate in medical circles. Some physicians advocate very hot baths for their supposed therapeutic benefits, while others warn that excessive heat can damage the heart and nervous system. Thomas, as in most things, prefers moderation. The water thunders into the tub, steam rising in the cool air of the bathing room. The public water supply, one of Reading's recent improvements, makes such facilities possible. No longer must water be hauled by hand from wells or the river. The municipal waterworks, with its great pumping engines and sand filtration beds, provides clean water to much of the town, though concerns about water quality remain, especially during the summer months when the river runs low. While the tub fills, Thomas undresses methodically, folding each garment carefully and placing it on the wooden chair. The air is cool against his skin, raising goosebumps. He tests the water with his hand, perfect temperature, warm enough to be comfortable but not so hot as to be enervating. Stepping into the tub requires care. The zinc surface is slippery, and more than one bather has taken an unfortunate tumble. Thomas lowers himself slowly, sighing with pleasure as the warm water envelopes him. The tub is not large, luxury of space is reserved for first-class patrons, but adequate for a good soak. He begins with his feet, scrubbing them thoroughly with a pumice stone to remove dead skin and calluses. Foot health is crucial for a man who spends much of his day standing. Neglected feet can develop painful conditions that make work difficult or impossible. Working his way up, Thomas lathers his legs with soap, noting the various marks of age and labor, a scar here from a childhood mishap, the ropey veins that have become more prominent in recent years. The warm water soothes the persistent ache in his joints, providing temporary relief from the rheumatic pains that plague him. He pays particular attention to areas where sweat and dirt accumulate, the groin, armpits, and feet. These areas, if neglected, can develop unpleasant odors and skin conditions. The carbolic soap, while harsh, ensures thorough cleansing. Washing his hair requires him to dunk his head under the water, an awkward maneuver in the confined space of the tub. He works up a good lather with the soap, massaging his scalp vigorously. His hair, now more gray than brown, has thinned considerably over the years, but he maintains what remains with careful attention. The bath water gradually turns gray with the accumulated dirt and soap. This visible evidence of cleansing provides a psychological satisfaction beyond the mere physical benefits. To be clean is to be respectable, civilized, separated from the beast and the savage. After 20 minutes of soaking and scrubbing, Thomas stands carefully and reaches for his towel. The Turkish toweling, with its loops of thread, absorbs water efficiently. He dries himself thoroughly, knowing that remaining damp in the cool air invites chills and potentially dangerous inflammations of the lungs. Once dry, he applies a small amount of bay rum to his face and neck, enjoying the tingling sensation and fresh scent. He dresses in his clean underlinens, noting with satisfaction the crisp feel of fresh cotton against clean skin. Before leaving, Thomas pulls the plug to drain the tub, watching the dirty water swirl away. The drainage system, another marvel of modern engineering, carries the wastewater to the sewage treatment works outside town. Reading has been fortunate to avoid the major cholera outbreaks that have struck other towns, largely due to improvements in water supply and sewage disposal. On his way back to the toll house, Thomas stops at Williamson's Pharmacy on Broad Street. The shop front, with its distinctive colored glass carboys in the window, red, blue, and green, marks it unmistakably as an apothecary's establishment. The colors, tradition holds, once indicated different types of medicines available within, though now they serve mainly as decoration and advertisement. A brass bell chimes as Thomas enters, and immediately his senses are assaulted by the complex mixture of aromas that defines a Victorian pharmacy: the sharp smell of carbolic acid, the sweetness of laudanum, the earthiness of dried herbs, and underneath it all, the distinctive scent of linseed oil and beeswax from the countless preparations lining the shelves. Mr. Williamson, a thin, precise man in his 60s, stands behind the mahogany counter, carefully measuring a powder on his brass scales. His white coat, though showing signs of various stains from his work, is crisp and professional. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling shelves hold hundreds of bottles and jars, each meticulously labeled in Latin: aqua fortis, tinctura opii, unguentum hydrargyri. "Ah, Mr. Hartwell." Williamson greets him, looking up from his work. "Come for your usual supplies?" "Yes, Mr. Williamson. I need more tooth powder, some carbolic soap, and perhaps you might recommend something for rheumatic pains? The damp weather has been troublesome." Williamson nods sympathetically. The changing seasons are always difficult for the joints. I have several preparations that might help. He moves along his shelves with practiced efficiency, selecting items as he speaks. For external application, I recommend this liniment. It contains oil of wintergreen, camphor, and a small amount of capsicum. Rub it well into the affected joints twice daily. The warmth it generates helps improve circulation and reduce stiffness. He places a brown glass bottle on the counter, then reaches for another. For internal use, this tonic contains willow bark extract, which is excellent for pain and inflammation. Take 1 spoonful in water 3 times daily, preferably after meals to avoid stomach upset. Thomas examines the bottles carefully. Patent medicines are everywhere these days, many making outrageous claims, but Mr. Williamson's preparations are conservative and based on proven remedies. Now, Williamson continues, warming to his subject, "Have you considered taking the waters at Bath? The mineral springs there have been proven beneficial for rheumatic conditions. The Romans knew what they were about when they built their baths there." "Perhaps when I can arrange time away from the gate," Thomas replies, though privately he doubts he could afford such a journey and stay. Williamson prepares Thomas's other items, wrapping them carefully in brown paper. As he works, he shares news from the medical world. "Have you heard about this new drug from Germany, aspirin, they're calling it? Supposed to be remarkable for pain and fever, derived from willow bark but more refined and consistent in its effects. Mark my words, these chemical preparations will revolutionize medicine." Thomas listens with interest. The pace of change in medical science seems to accelerate each year. "What about prevention, Mr. Williamson?" "I've been reading about hygiene and disease prevention." "Ah, prevention." Williamson's eyes light up. "The best medicine of all. Continue your regular washing, maintain good ventilation in your home, eat wholesome food, take regular exercise, and avoid excess in all things. These simple measures are worth more than all the medicines in my shop." He leans closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "Between you and me, Mr. Hartwell, half the patent medicines sold today are worthless at best, dangerous at worst. Stick to proven remedies and common sense, and you'll do better than those who chase every new cure-all that comes along." As Thomas prepares to leave, Williamson adds one more item to his package. Here, take this small tin of zinc ointment, no charge. It's excellent for minor cuts and abrasions, helps them heal cleanly without suppuration. In your work, handling money and meeting travelers all day, you're exposed to all manner of contagions. Best to treat any break in the skin promptly. Back at the toll house, the afternoon has brought steady traffic. Thomas relieves young Samuel, the boy who watches the gate during his absence, with a penny for his trouble. Samuel, the son of a laboring family, is bright and eager, and Thomas has been teaching him his letters and numbers when time permits. As evening approaches, Thomas prepares for one of his regular charitable duties. Mrs. Blackwood, an elderly widow who lives in a cottage just down the road, has been ill with a persistent cough and weakness. As one of the informal health watchers of the community, Thomas often checks on the sick and elderly, bringing them supplies and ensuring they receive proper care. He prepares a basket with supplies, a small pot of beef tea he's kept warm on the range, some fresh bread, a jar of honey for her throat, and a bottle of the cough mixture Mr. Williamson recommended. The beef tea, made from good shin of beef simmered slowly with vegetables, is considered one of the best remedies for maintaining strength during illness. The walk to Mrs. Blackwood's cottage takes only 5 minutes. The small dwelling, one of a row of workers' cottages built 40 years ago, shows signs of age and limited means. The thatch needs repair, and the small garden, usually meticulously maintained, has become overgrown during her illness. Thomas knocks gently and enters when he hears a weak response. The interior is dim, lit only by a small fire and a single candle. Mrs. Blackwood lies propped up in her bed in the corner of the main room, her face pale and drawn but her eyes still bright with intelligence. "Thomas, you're too kind," she says, her voice hoarse. "You shouldn't trouble yourself." "Nonsense, Mrs. Blackwood. We look after our own here." Thomas sets down his basket and immediately notices the stuffiness of the air. "First, let's get some fresh air in here. The miasma of illness needs to be dispersed." He opens the window a crack, despite Mrs. Blackwood's protests about the cold. The fresh evening air immediately improves the atmosphere. While modern medicine may debate the miasma theory, Thomas knows from experience that fresh air aids recovery. He helps Mrs. Blackwood sit up properly, plumping the pillows behind her. Proper positioning, he's learned, helps with breathing difficulties. He then prepares the beef tea, heating it over her small fire and serving it in a clean cup. "Small sips now," he advises. "It's important to maintain your strength." While she drinks, Thomas tidies the room, removing used handkerchiefs and replacing them with clean ones he's brought. Cross-infection is a constant concern when caring for the sick, and Thomas is careful to avoid direct contact with items that might carry contagion. "Have you been taking the medicine Dr. Morrison prescribed?" he asks. "When I can manage it," she admits. "The laudanum helps with the cough, but it makes me so drowsy." Thomas nods understandingly. Laudanum, tincture of opium, is the Victorian cure-all, prescribed for everything from coughs to melancholy. While effective for suppressing coughs and pain, its soporific effects and potential for habituation make it a double-edged sword. "Perhaps we might try some alternatives," Thomas suggests. He prepares a steam inhalation using hot water in a basin, adding a few drops of eucalyptus oil from a small bottle in his supplies. "Breathe in the vapors, they'll help clear your chest without the drowsiness." Mrs. Blackwood leans over the basin, a towel draped over her head to trap the steam. The pungent, medicinal smell of eucalyptus fills the small room. After several minutes, her breathing seems easier, and some color returns to her cheeks. My grandmother swore by onion poultices for chest complaints, Mrs. Blackwood mentions, her voice clearer after the steam treatment. A sound remedy, Thomas agrees. The old ways often have merit. I'll prepare one for you if you'd like. He slices an onion from her meager supplies, heating the pieces gently in a pan with a little water until they're soft and translucent. He then wraps them in a piece of clean flannel, creating a warm compress. Place this on your chest, he instructs. The warmth and the properties of the onion help break up congestion. Replace it when it cools. Before leaving, Thomas ensures Mrs. Blackwood has everything she needs within reach: water, clean handkerchiefs, her medicine, and a small bell to ring if she needs urgent help. He banks the fire carefully, ensuring it will last through the night without danger. I'll send young Samuel's mother around tomorrow to check on you, he promises. And I'll be back in the evening with more supplies. Walking back to the toll house in the gathering dusk, Thomas reflects on the informal network of care that sustains their small community. Without the extended family structures of rural areas or the organized charities of large cities, they must rely on neighborly kindness and mutual aid. The evening at the toll house follows its usual pattern. Thomas closes the gate at 9 o'clock, though he remains available for urgent travelers who might need passage during the night. A bell pull at the gate rings in his bedroom, ensuring he can respond to late-night calls while still getting necessary rest. After a simple supper of bread, cheese, and pickled onions, the vinegar and the pickles believed to aid digestion and ward off putrid diseases, Thomas settles in his chair by the fire with his pipe and the latest copy of The Family Physician, a popular health manual he purchased last Christmas. The book, written by a prominent London doctor, contains advice on treating common ailments, maintaining health, and recognizing serious conditions requiring professional medical attention. Thomas reads the section on respiratory diseases with particular interest, given Mrs. Blackwood's condition. Chronic bronchitis, he reads aloud to himself, is characterized by persistent cough, production of sputum, and difficulty breathing, particularly in cold, damp weather. Treatment consists of maintaining warmth, ensuring good nutrition, and the careful use of expectorants to help clear the lungs. The book recommends various treatments: mustard plasters to the chest, inhalations of tar vapor, and a diet rich in nutritious foods. It also warns against the overuse of opium preparations, which, while suppressing the cough, can actually impede the clearing of mucus from the lungs. A sudden knocking at the door interrupts his reading. Thomas opens it to find James Mitchell, a local farmer, supporting his young son who appears to be in considerable distress. "Mr. Hartwell, please, we need to get to Dr. Morrison urgently. Young Tom's had an accident with the threshing machine." Thomas immediately sees the blood-soaked cloth wrapped around the boy's hand. Without hesitation, he ushers them inside, his toll-collecting duties forgotten in the face of medical emergency. "Sit him here by the fire," Thomas instructs, clearing his own chair. "Let me see the wound." Carefully unwrapping the makeshift bandage, Thomas reveals a deep gash across the palm of the boy's hand. Blood flows freely, and he can see the wound needs proper medical attention. However, certain immediate steps must be taken. "First, we must control the bleeding," Thomas says calmly, drawing on knowledge gained from years of dealing with minor emergencies. He retrieves clean linen strips from his supplies and shows the father how to apply direct pressure to the wound. From his medicine chest, Thomas takes the bottle of carbolic solution Mr. Williamson provided for emergencies. Diluting it carefully with boiled water that has cooled, he creates an antiseptic wash. This will sting, young Tom, but it's necessary to prevent blood poisoning, he warns the boy, who nods bravely through his tears. Thomas gently cleans around the wound, removing visible dirt and debris. The carbolic solution, though painful, is crucial for preventing the sepsis that claims so many lives from seemingly minor injuries. Once the wound is clean and the bleeding controlled, Thomas applies a proper bandage, firm but not so tight as to cut off circulation. He fashions a sling from a large handkerchief to keep the hand elevated, reducing blood flow to the injury. "Now, we must get you to Dr. Morrison," Thomas says. "James, take my horse and cart, they're faster than walking. I'll give you a note for the doctor explaining what I've done." He quickly writes a message detailing the first aid provided and the time of injury. This information will help Dr. Morrison determine the best course of treatment. As father and son depart into the night, Thomas reflects on the precarious nature of health in their time. A simple accident with farm machinery could lead to death from blood loss or infection. The new understanding of germs and antiseptic treatment has improved survival rates, but danger lurks in every sharp edge and rusty nail. The next morning brings with it a familiar but unwelcome sensation, a dull, throbbing ache in one of Thomas's back teeth. He's been ignoring it for several weeks, hoping it would resolve on its own, but the pain has become increasingly insistent. Dental problems are among the most feared ailments of the Victorian era. The options for treatment are limited and often excruciating. Many people simply endure the pain until the tooth falls out naturally or becomes so infected that extraction is the only option. Thomas rinses his mouth with warm salt water, hoping to ease the discomfort. He then applies a small amount of oil of cloves to the affected tooth using a cotton wad. The numbing effect is immediate but temporary, and he knows he cannot postpone a decision much longer. At mid-morning, during a lull in traffic, Thomas is visited by Mr. Frederick Harrington, one of Reading's new dental surgeons. Harrington, a young man with progressive ideas about dental care, has been promoting the concept of preventive dentistry rather than merely extractive treatment. "Good morning, Mr. Hartwell," Harrington greets him cheerfully. "I'm making rounds to discuss the new dental hygiene program we're proposing for the town. Might I have a moment of your time?" Thomas winces slightly as he speaks, the movement aggravating his toothache. Harrington notices immediately. "Are you experiencing dental discomfort, Mr. Hartwell?" Thomas admits to the problem, and Harrington asks if he might examine the tooth. With some reluctance, Thomas agrees. Harrington produces a small mirror and probe from his bag, instruments that represent the modern approach to dentistry. Yes, I can see the issue," Harrington says after a careful examination. "You have a cavity that has progressed quite deeply. Left untreated, it will certainly abscess, which could be dangerous." The word dangerous catches Thomas's attention. Dental abscesses can indeed be fatal if the infection spreads to the blood or brain. "What do you recommend?" Thomas asks, though he fears the answer. "Ideally, I would clean out the decay and fill the tooth with amalgam, a mixture of silver and mercury that hardens to seal the cavity." It's a relatively new procedure, but quite successful when properly done. And the alternative? Extraction, I'm afraid. Which would solve the immediate problem but leave you with a gap that could affect your eating and cause other teeth to shift position. Thomas considers his options. The filling sounds promising but expensive and requires trust in new methods. Extraction is tried and true but permanent and debilitating. What about the pain during the procedure? Thomas asks, voicing his primary concern. Harrington's face brightens. Ah, that's where modern dentistry has made tremendous strides. We now use cocaine solution as a local anesthetic. Applied to the gum, it numbs the area completely. Some practitioners are even experimenting with nitrous oxide, laughing gas, for more extensive procedures. The idea of painless dentistry seems almost miraculous to Thomas, who remembers the screams from the tooth drawer's shop in his youth. How much would the filling cost? Thomas asks practically. 5 shillings for the complete treatment, including the anesthetic, Harrington replies. I know it seems dear, but consider it an investment in your health. That tooth, properly filled, could last many more years. Thomas makes his decision. Very well, Mr. Harrington. When could you perform the procedure? I could come here tomorrow afternoon if that suits. I have a portable dental kit that allows me to treat patients in their homes or workplaces. Much more convenient and less frightening than visiting a surgery. They arrange the appointment, and Harrington provides Thomas with a special tooth powder containing additional minerals to help strengthen the remaining teeth. Prevention is always preferable to treatment, he emphasizes. Saturday brings the weekly market to Reading, and Thomas always arranges for Samuel to watch the gate for a few hours so he can visit. The market is not just a place for commerce but a social hub where information, including medical knowledge and remedies, is exchanged. The market square bustles with activity. Farmers' wives sell eggs, butter, and cheese alongside vegetables and preserved goods. But Thomas's interest today lies with the herb woman, Mrs. Pennywhistle, whose stall offers a fascinating array of medicinal plants and preparations. Mrs. Pennywhistle, a woman of indeterminate age with knowing eyes and gnarled hands, represents the old tradition of folk medicine that exists alongside modern medical practice. Her stall displays bunches of dried herbs hanging from a wooden frame, jars of mysterious ointments, and bottles of tinctures in various hues. Mr. Hartwell, she calls out warmly. Come for your spring tonic, have you? Every spring, Thomas purchases Mrs. Pennywhistle's blood-cleansing tonic, a tradition he inherited from his mother. The mixture, containing burdock root, dandelion, nettle, and other herbs, is supposed to purify the blood after the heavy diet of winter. Indeed, Mrs. Pennywhistle. And perhaps something for joint pain as well. She nods sagely and begins preparing his order, her movements quick and practiced. The damp getting to you? I have just the thing, a warming liniment with cayenne, ginger, and mustard seed in a base of goose grease. Rub it in well morning and night. As she works, she shares local health news and remedies. Young Mrs. Fletcher swears my raspberry leaf tea helped with her recent confinement. Easy labor, healthy baby. And old Mr. Grimsby's gout is much improved since he started taking my cherry extract. Thomas listens with interest. While some dismiss such remedies as superstition, he's observed enough positive results to keep an open mind. Many modern medicines, after all, derive from plant sources: digitalis from foxglove, morphine from poppies, quinine from cinchona bark. A commotion nearby draws their attention. A woman has fainted, probably from the combination of tight corsetry and the press of the crowd. Several people rush to help, fanning her with whatever comes to hand and loosening her collar. Dr. Morrison appears, having been shopping nearby. He quickly takes charge, instructing helpers to carry the woman to a bench in the shade. He produces a small bottle of smelling salts from his bag, waving it under her nose. The sharp ammonia smell quickly brings her around. The perils of fashion, Dr. Morrison mutters to Thomas, who has come to assist. These tight corsets compress the organs and restrict breathing. No wonder women are prone to fainting. The woman recovers quickly once her stays are loosened and she's given water to drink. The incident sparks a discussion among the gathered crowd about the health effects of women's fashion. Some defend the corset as necessary for proper posture and moral rectitude, while others, including Dr. Morrison, argue for dress reform on health grounds. Thomas purchases his remedies from Mrs. Pennywhistle and continues through the market. At a bookstall, he finds a used copy of Domestic Medicine by William Buchan, an older but still valuable medical guide. Though first published a century ago, its practical advice on hygiene, diet, and simple remedies remains relevant. He also stops at the soap maker's stall, examining the various offerings. Good soap is essential for health, but the quality varies greatly. Some unscrupulous makers use excessive lye, creating harsh soaps that damage skin, while others add unnecessary perfumes that can cause irritation. The soap maker, Mr. Collins, takes pride in his products. All made with pure tallow and vegetable oils, he assures Thomas. No adulterants, no harsh chemicals. This batch here includes oatmeal for gentle cleansing, and this one has sulfur for skin complaints. Thomas purchases several bars, including some of the sulfur soap for Mrs. Blackwood, as it might help with the skin irritation that often accompanies prolonged illness. Sunday dawns clear and bright, a perfect spring morning. Thomas rises early as usual but allows himself a more leisurely pace in recognition of the Sabbath. The toll gate remains closed on Sundays except for emergencies, giving Thomas his only full day of rest. After his morning ablutions, performed with extra care for church attendance, Thomas dresses in his Sunday best, a black wool suit kept carefully brushed and pressed, a white shirt with a high-starched collar, and his one luxury, a silk cravat his late wife gave him for their 20th anniversary. Before church, he performs his weekly health ritual, a thorough self-examination looking for any signs of illness or concern. This practice, recommended by his medical manual, involves checking his tongue. A coated tongue can indicate digestive issues, examining his skin for unusual marks or rashes, and noting any changes in his general condition. He takes his pulse, counting the beats against his pocket watch. 68 beats per minute, within the normal range for a man his age. His temperature, taken with the mercury thermometer he purchased last year, an expensive but worthwhile investment, reads normal. The walk to St. Mary's Church takes 20 minutes at a comfortable pace. The church, with its ancient stones and Norman tower, has stood at the heart of Reading for 8 centuries. Its cool interior provides respite from the warming day, and the familiar ritual of the service offers spiritual and psychological comfort. The vicar, Reverend Aldrich, delivers a sermon on the parable of the Good Samaritan, emphasizing the Christian duty to care for the sick and needy. Thomas finds the message particularly relevant given his unofficial role as health guardian for his small section of the community. After the service, the congregation gathers in the churchyard for social exchange. This weekly gathering serves an important health function. It allows observation of the community's general well-being and the sharing of health information. Mrs. Patterson mentions that her youngest has recovered from the measles, though she's keeping him home another week to prevent spreading the disease. Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher show off their new baby, born healthy despite the fears that always accompany childbirth in this era of high infant mortality. Dr. Morrison takes Thomas aside for a private word. "I wanted to thank you for your help with the Mitchell boy. Your prompt first aid likely saved his hand, if not his life. The wound was deep but clean, thanks to your carbolic wash. No signs of sepsis." This news greatly pleases Thomas. The boy's recovery validates the new antiseptic methods and reinforces the importance of prompt, proper treatment of wounds. The church social also serves as an informal medical consultation venue. Several parishioners approach Dr. Morrison with quick questions about various ailments. He handles these graciously, though Thomas notices the doctor's slight frustration at never being truly off duty. After church, Thomas returns home for his main meal of the week, a roast chicken he's been saving, with vegetables from his garden and a steamed pudding for dessert. The Victorian Sunday dinner is as much about nutrition as tradition, providing the substantial nourishment needed for the working week ahead. The afternoon he spends reading and resting, following the biblical injunction for Sabbath rest but also the medical advice that regular rest is essential for maintaining health. He reads from his Bible, finding comfort in familiar passages, then continues with his medical manual, learning about the treatment of summer complaints that will soon be relevant as the weather warms. Monday morning brings troubling news. A commercial traveler passing through the toll gate mentions an outbreak of scarlet fever in Oxford, just 20 miles away. Such news sends a chill through Thomas, for infectious diseases can spread rapidly along the coaching routes. Scarlet fever, with its characteristic rash and high fever, is particularly feared because it often strikes children and can lead to serious complications affecting the heart and kidneys. Thomas immediately begins thinking about preventive measures. When Dr. Morrison passes through later that morning, Thomas shares the intelligence. The doctor's face grows grave. "We must alert the Board of Health immediately," Dr. Morrison says. "Isolation and quarantine are our best defenses. Any suspected cases must be reported at once." They discuss the signs to watch for: sudden fever, sore throat, and a distinctive sandpaper-like rash that gives the disease its name. Thomas agrees to observe travelers carefully and report any suspicious cases. "What about prevention?" Thomas asks. "Is there anything people can do to protect themselves?" "Maintain scrupulous cleanliness," the doctor emphasizes. Scarlet fever spreads through droplets from coughing and sneezing, and possibly through contaminated objects. Regular hand washing, avoiding crowds when possible, and isolating the sick are crucial. Thomas implements his own protective measures. He increases his hand washing frequency, especially after handling money. He places a basin of carbolic solution by the gate for his own use and begins wearing gloves when collecting tolls, despite the awkwardness they cause in handling coins. That afternoon, a family arrives from Oxford seeking passage. The youngest child appears flushed and complains of feeling unwell. Thomas's suspicions are immediately aroused. "Forgive my asking," he says carefully to the parents, "but has your child been exposed to any illness recently?" The mother admits that several children in their neighborhood have been sick with fever. Thomas faces a dilemma. He cannot refuse passage without cause, but he also has a responsibility to protect his community. He compromises by suggesting they might want to consult Dr. Morrison before continuing their journey, giving them directions to his surgery. He also makes a note in his ledger, recording the family's details in case contact tracing becomes necessary. After they leave, Thomas thoroughly washes his hands and cleans any surfaces they might have touched with carbolic solution. Perhaps he's being overcautious, but in matters of public health, excess caution is preferable to negligence. The scarlet fever scare intensifies over the following days. The Board of Health issues notices recommending various preventive measures. Schools are instructed to send home any children showing signs of illness. Public gatherings are discouraged. Thomas creates his own health checkpoint at the toll gate. He observes each traveler carefully, looking for signs of illness. Those appearing unwell are politely but firmly advised to seek medical attention before proceeding. Some grumble at the inconvenience, but most understand the necessity. The warm weather of late spring brings another health concern to the forefront: water quality. As the river levels drop and temperatures rise, the risk of waterborne diseases increases. Reading has invested heavily in water treatment, but concerns remain, especially among those who remember the cholera outbreaks of previous decades. Thomas has always been particular about water. At the toll house, he draws from a deep well that has proven reliable and pure. But he also boils drinking water as an extra precaution, a practice some consider excessive but which Dr. Morrison endorses. One evening, Thomas attends a public lecture at the Mechanics' Institute on water purity and public health. The speaker, a sanitary engineer from London, explains the latest understanding of water contamination and disease transmission. "Gentlemen," the speaker begins, using a magic lantern to project images onto a screen, "observe these microscopic organisms found in contaminated water. These bacteria, invisible to the naked eye, are responsible for typhoid, cholera, and other waterborne diseases." The projected images show strange, wiggling creatures magnified hundreds of times. The audience murmurs with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. The idea that such tiny organisms could cause death seems almost fantastical, yet the evidence is mounting. The engineer explains the process of sand filtration used at Reading's waterworks, how the slow passage through sand beds removes both visible particles and many microscopic organisms. He also discusses the controversial topic of water chlorination, a new technique being tested in some cities. The addition of small amounts of chlorine to water supplies can kill these harmful bacteria, he explains. However, concerns about the taste and possible health effects of the chlorine itself have limited its adoption. During the question period, Thomas asks about home water treatment methods. The engineer recommends boiling for at least 10 minutes, or the use of ceramic filters for those who can afford them. Inspired by the lecture, Thomas invests in a Dolton ceramic water filter, an expensive but sophisticated device that uses porous ceramic to strain out impurities. The filter, with its elegant stoneware container, becomes a centerpiece in his kitchen, a symbol of modern scientific hygiene. He also begins advising travelers about water safety, especially those heading to or from London, where the Thames still receives sewage despite efforts at reform. He keeps a supply of water purification tablets, a new product containing chlorine compounds, to give to travelers who seem receptive to advice. A new development in public health arrives in Reading with the appointment of Miss Catherine Hartley as the district's first official health visitor. This represents a progressive step, recognizing that women, particularly trained nurses, can play a crucial role in promoting health and hygiene in homes. Miss Hartley, a woman in her 30s with a brisk, professional manner, introduces herself to Thomas one morning at the toll gate. She wears the distinctive uniform of a Queen's nurse, a blue dress with white apron and cap, marking her as a trained medical professional. "Mr. Hartwell, I understand you've been performing informal health visiting in this area," she says. "I'd like to coordinate our efforts to avoid duplication and ensure comprehensive coverage." Thomas is impressed by her forthright approach and gladly agrees to share his knowledge of local families and their health needs. They discuss various households, with Thomas providing valuable background information. Mrs. Blackwood, for instance, has chronic bronchitis but is too proud to ask for regular help, he explains. And the Turner family, with 6 children, struggles with basic hygiene due to overcrowding and poverty. Miss Hartley takes careful notes in her leather notebook. What about maternal health? Are there pregnant women who need monitoring? Thomas mentions several expectant mothers in the area. The high rate of maternal and infant mortality makes prenatal care crucial, though many women still rely solely on traditional midwives rather than trained medical assistants. "I'd like to establish a mothers' meeting," Miss Hartley explains. "A weekly gathering where women can learn about infant care, nutrition, and hygiene. Would you have space at the toll house for such meetings?" Thomas readily agrees, seeing the value in such education. Too many infants die from preventable causes: improper feeding, poor hygiene, or inadequate treatment of common ailments. The first mothers' meeting is held the following Thursday afternoon. 6 women attend, some walking considerable distances with babies in arms. Miss Hartley has prepared an impressive array of educational materials, charts showing proper infant feeding techniques, samples of appropriate foods for weaning, and demonstrations of baby bathing. The most important factor in infant health, she emphasizes, is cleanliness. Clean hands, clean bottles if not breastfeeding, clean clothes and bedding. Many infant deaths from summer diarrhea are actually caused by contaminated milk or water. She demonstrates how to properly clean and store feeding bottles, a particular challenge in homes without running water. She also discusses the controversial topic of wet nursing versus bottle feeding, acknowledging the social realities that force many working mothers to use artificial feeding despite its higher risks. Thomas observes from the doorway, gaining new appreciation for the complexities of infant care. He's also struck by how receptive the women are to Miss Hartley's scientific approach, despite initial skepticism about a trained nurse telling them how to raise babies. The appointed day for Thomas's dental treatment arrives with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Mr. Harrington arrives at the toll house promptly at 2 o'clock, carrying a large leather case containing his portable dental equipment. "Good afternoon, Mr. Hartwell. How is the tooth today?" he inquires professionally. "Painful, I'm afraid. I'll be glad to have it attended to." Harrington sets up his equipment with practiced efficiency. He places a clean white cloth over Thomas's kitchen table and arranges his instruments, picks, probes, excavators, and the materials for the filling. The sight of these implements would normally inspire terror, but Harrington's calm professionalism is reassuring. First, we'll apply the cocaine solution to numb the area, Harrington explains, producing a small bottle of clear liquid. This is a 5% solution, quite safe when properly used. You'll feel a tingling sensation, then numbness. Using a cotton swab, he carefully applies the solution around the affected tooth. Within minutes, Thomas feels the promised tingling, followed by a strange numbness that spreads through his jaw. "Can you feel this?" Harrington asks, gently probing with an instrument. Thomas is amazed to feel pressure but no pain. "It's remarkable. I can feel you touching, but there's no discomfort." "Excellent. Now, I need you to open wide and remain as still as possible. I'll work as quickly as I can while being thorough." The next half hour is surreal for Thomas. He can hear and feel the scraping as Harrington removes the decay, the occasional clink of metal against tooth, but there's no pain, only an odd sensation of invasion in his mouth. Harrington provides a running commentary, partly to reassure and partly from professional enthusiasm. The decay was quite extensive but hadn't reached the nerve, very fortunate. "I'm cleaning out all the affected material and shaping the cavity to hold the filling securely." He irrigates the cavity with a carbolic solution, explaining that this will help prevent future decay. Then comes the filling itself, an amalgam of silver, tin, and mercury that Harrington mixes fresh. "Some people worry about the mercury," he acknowledges, "but when properly mixed and hardened, it's quite safe. This filling should last many years with proper care." The sensation of the cold metal being packed into his tooth is odd but not unpleasant. Harrington shapes the filling carefully, checking Thomas's bite to ensure proper alignment. "There we are," he announces finally. "The numbness will wear off in an hour or two. Avoid eating on that side today, and rinse with warm salt water if there's any soreness." As Harrington packs his equipment, he provides instructions for ongoing dental care. Brush twice daily with a good tooth powder, use dental floss, this silk thread, to clean between teeth, and avoid excessive sugar. With proper care, you should keep your remaining teeth for many years. The total cost of 5 shillings seems entirely reasonable to Thomas, considering the alternative of extraction and ongoing pain. As the numbness wears off, he's left with only mild soreness and a profound gratitude for modern dental science. As spring gives way to summer, Thomas's health concerns shift to the particular challenges of warm weather. The Victorian summer brings its own set of health hazards, food spoilage, insect-borne diseases, and the dreaded summer complaints that claim so many lives, particularly among children. Thomas adapts his routines accordingly. The larder, always cool due to its northern exposure and thick walls, becomes even more critical for food preservation. He purchases fresh food daily when possible, and what must be stored is carefully protected from flies with muslin covers. Flies, Thomas has learned from recent medical articles, are not merely nuisances but active disease vectors. They land on filth and then on food, carrying contamination on their feet and in their digestive systems. He installs fly papers, strips of sticky paper that trap the insects, throughout the toll house and keeps doors and windows covered with fine mesh screens he's constructed himself. The medicine chest receives summer additions. Laudanum for diarrhea, though to be used sparingly, bismuth preparations for stomach complaints, and calamine lotion for insect bites and heat rashes. He also stocks up on disinfectants, knowing that the warm weather accelerates putrefaction and decay. One particularly hot day in July, Thomas observes a concerning sight: a family traveling with a clearly ill child. The child's face is flushed with more than just heat, and the telltale lethargy of serious illness is evident. "Your child needs medical attention," Thomas says firmly to the parents. "There's cholera and phantom about this summer." Cholera and phantom, summer diarrhea, is a killer of infants and young children, striking with terrible suddenness. The combination of heat, contaminated food or milk, and poor hygiene creates perfect conditions for its spread. The parents, initially resistant, are convinced when Thomas offers to send for Dr. Morrison at his own expense. The doctor arrives quickly and confirms Thomas's suspicions: the child is severely dehydrated from diarrhea and vomiting. Quick action is essential, Dr. Morrison explains as he examines the child. The primary danger is dehydration. The child must take fluids, even if only in small sips. He prepares a solution of boiled water with salt and sugar, a simple but effective rehydration remedy. This replaces not just the water but the essential salts lost through diarrhea, he explains to the worried parents. The family is directed to Mrs. Patterson's boarding house, where they can rest in clean, cool rooms while the child recovers. Thomas sanitizes the area where they waited, using carbolic solution liberally. He's learned that vigilance in these small matters can prevent larger outbreaks. The summer also brings an increase in workplace accidents as agricultural work intensifies. Thomas keeps his first aid supplies well stocked: clean bandages, carbolic solution, court plaster for minor cuts, and splinting materials for fractures. His toll house has become an unofficial first aid station for the district. One evening, as the sun sets in a blaze of orange and gold over the Berkshire Hills, Thomas sits in his small garden, enjoying the cooler air. He's planted feverfew and chamomile among his vegetables, their white flowers glowing in the twilight. These plants will be harvested and dried for winter remedies: feverfew for headaches and chamomile for digestive troubles and sleeplessness. The sound of approaching hoofbeats draws his attention. A rider approaches at speed, never a good sign at this hour. It's young Samuel, his sometime assistant, breathless with urgency. "Mr. Hartwell, sir." Mother says to come quick. "Father's been took bad, terrible pains in his chest and can't catch his breath proper." Thomas doesn't hesitate. He grabs his emergency medical kit, a leather satchel containing basic supplies he's assembled over the years, and follows Samuel at a rapid walk. The cottage is only 10 minutes away, but they seem like the longest 10 minutes of Thomas's life. The scene at the cottage is one of controlled panic. Samuel's father, Robert, lies on the bed, his face gray and covered with perspiration. His breathing is labored, and he clutches at his chest. His wife hovers nearby, wringing her hands. Thomas quickly assesses the situation. The symptoms suggest a heart seizure, what some doctors are calling angina pectoris. While he cannot cure such a condition, certain measures might provide relief until the doctor arrives. "Prop him up with pillows," Thomas instructs, knowing that a semi-upright position often eases breathing difficulties. "Open all the windows for fresh air." Samuel, run for Dr. Morrison, tell him it's urgent, possibly a heart seizure. From his kit, Thomas retrieves a small bottle of spirits of ammonia, smelling salts. He waves it gently under Robert's nose, not to revive him from unconsciousness but to stimulate breathing. The sharp smell causes Robert to gasp and seems to ease his breathing slightly. "Robert, try to remain calm," Thomas says soothingly. "Panic will only make it worse. Breathe slowly and steadily." He loosens Robert's clothing, removing his collar and opening his shirt. The Victorian tendency toward tight, restrictive clothing can worsen circulatory problems. From his supplies, Thomas produces a small vial of laudanum. "Just a few drops under your tongue," he instructs Robert. "It will ease the pain and help you relax." The opium preparation, while not addressing the underlying heart problem, can reduce the anxiety and pain that accompany such attacks. Thomas has learned that sometimes managing symptoms is all that can be done while waiting for proper medical help. He also prepares a mustard plaster, mixing mustard powder with flour and water to create a paste, which he spreads on a piece of flannel. "This goes on your chest," he explains. "The warmth and counter-irritation can help with the pain." The mustard plaster, a traditional remedy, works by creating a warming sensation that can distract from deeper pain and possibly improve circulation to the area. Whether it truly helps the heart condition is debatable, but the psychological comfort of active treatment has value. Dr. Morrison arrives within the half hour, carrying his medical bag and looking grave. He quickly examines Robert, listening to his chest with his stethoscope and checking his pulse. "You've done well, Thomas," he says quietly. The positioning and calm management have helped. "This appears to be an attack of angina, painful but not immediately fatal if properly managed." He prepares a more specific treatment, nitroglycerin, a relatively new medicine that dilates blood vessels and can relieve angina attacks. "This will taste sweet and may cause a headache," he warns Robert, "but it should ease the chest pain." Within minutes of taking the nitroglycerin, Robert's breathing becomes easier and some color returns to his face. The crisis has passed, though Dr. Morrison warns that rest and careful management will be necessary to prevent future attacks. "Diet is crucial," the doctor explains to the family. "Less rich food, no excessive alcohol, gentle exercise but no heavy labor." And Thomas's quick thinking likely prevented this from becoming much worse. As Thomas walks home in the darkness, guided by his lantern's yellow glow, he reflects on the fragility of life and the importance of medical knowledge, however basic. In an era before ambulances and emergency rooms, communities must rely on the knowledge and quick thinking of their members. September arrives with its golden light and crisp mornings, bringing relief from summer's health hazards but introducing new concerns. The change of seasons, Victorian medical opinion holds, is a time of particular vulnerability to illness. Thomas prepares accordingly. His first task is the autumn cleaning of the toll house, not just ordinary cleaning but a thorough sanitary overhaul. Every room is systematically addressed. Bedding is aired in the sunshine, beaten to remove dust mites, and treated with benzene to kill any lingering parasites. The belief that sunlight has purifying properties, while not fully understood scientifically, has practical truth. Ultraviolet rays do indeed kill many harmful organisms. The walls are washed with lime wash, which not only brightens the rooms but has disinfectant properties. The floors are scrubbed with hot water and carbolic soap, paying special attention to corners and crevices where disease-causing matter might accumulate. The chimney sweep arrives for the annual cleaning, a necessary but messy operation. Chimney fires are a constant danger, but equally concerning is the accumulation of soot, which can harbor disease and create respiratory problems. Thomas has read about chimney sweeps cancer, a terrible affliction affecting young boys forced to climb chimneys, and ensures his sweep uses proper brushes and equipment rather than sending children up the flues. In the garden, Thomas harvests his medicinal herbs before the first frost. The lavender is cut and bundled for drying, its purple flowers filling the toll house with fragrance. Comfrey leaves are carefully dried for winter poultices. The elderberries are turned into syrup, a sovereign remedy for winter coughs and colds. He also prepares his winter medicine stock. A visit to Mr. Williamson's pharmacy yields essential supplies: camphorated oil for chest rubs, ipecacuanha wine for coughs, Gregory's powder for digestive complaints, and a fresh supply of quinine for fevers. These preparations, stored properly, will see him through the months when travel to town might be difficult. One cool October evening, Miss Hartley, the health visitor, calls at the toll house with concerning news. "There's been an outbreak of diphtheria in the workhouse," she reports grimly. 3 children dead already, and more sickening. Diphtheria, the strangling angel of children, is one of the most feared diseases of the era. It begins like a common cold but can quickly progress to form a membrane in the throat that literally suffocates its victims. What can be done? Thomas asks, though he knows the options are limited. Isolation is crucial, Miss Hartley explains. The workhouse infirmary is overwhelmed. We're trying to prevent spread to the general population. I'm warning all my contacts to watch for symptoms: sore throat, fever, and especially any sign of the gray membrane forming in the throat. She provides Thomas with printed notices to post at the toll gate, warning travelers of the outbreak and listing symptoms to watch for. She also gives him a bottle of carbolic solution specifically formulated for gargling, which may help prevent infection. There's talk of a new treatment from Germany, she adds. An antitoxin derived from horses that have been exposed to the disease. But it's experimental and not yet available here. The idea of using horse blood to treat human disease seems bizarre, yet Thomas has learned to keep an open mind about medical advances. What seems impossible today may be commonplace tomorrow. November brings an urgent summons from Miss Hartley. One of the isolated diphtheria cases, a young girl named Emma from a poor family, needs immediate help, and the regular medical services are overwhelmed. Thomas doesn't hesitate, despite the risk. He packs his medical supplies and follows Miss Hartley to a small cottage on the outskirts of Reading. The house has been marked with a yellow flag, warning of infectious disease within. Inside, they find a scene of quiet desperation. 8-year-old Emma lies in bed, struggling to breathe, her lips tinged blue from lack of oxygen. Her mother hovers nearby, exhausted from days of nursing. "The doctor came yesterday," the mother explains tearfully. "He said there's nothing more to be done but keep her comfortable and pray." Miss Hartley examines the child professionally. The membrane is extensive but hasn't completely blocked the airway. "Thomas, we need to set up steam inhalations immediately." They work as a practice team. Thomas builds up the fire while Miss Hartley prepares a steam tent using sheets and blankets. A large pot of water is set to boil, with additions of compound tincture of benzoin and oil of eucalyptus to help open the airways. We'll also try something I learned from a colleague in London, Miss Hartley says, producing a small bottle. Hydrogen peroxide solution, very diluted. It can help dissolve the membrane when carefully applied. Using a long-handled spoon wrapped in cotton, she gently swabs the child's throat with the solution. Emma gags and coughs, but small pieces of the deadly membrane begin to loosen. Through the long night, they maintain their vigil. Every hour, they repeat the steam treatment and gentle swabbing. Thomas keeps the fire burning steadily while Miss Hartley monitors Emma's condition. The mother, given a task to keep her occupied, prepares beef tea and other nourishment for when Emma can swallow. As dawn breaks, Emma's breathing seems easier. The blue tinge has left her lips, and she manages to swallow a few spoonfuls of warm broth. It's not a cure, that will take weeks of careful nursing, but the immediate crisis has passed. Dr. Morrison arrives with the morning light, exhausted from attending other cases. He examines Emma carefully and nods approvingly. "Excellent work," he commends them. "Your intervention likely saved her life." The steam and peroxide treatment isn't in the textbooks yet, but I've heard promising reports from the London hospitals. As Thomas walks home, tired but satisfied, he reflects on the night's work. In an age of limited medical options, the combination of traditional nursing care, empirical observation, and cautious adoption of new methods offers the best hope for survival. December arrives with frost on the windows and the promise of snow in the leaden sky. Winter in Victorian England brings particular health challenges, respiratory ailments, the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning from poorly ventilated heating, and the nutritional deficiencies that come from limited fresh food. Thomas prepares his toll house with practiced efficiency. Weather stripping around doors and windows keeps out drafts while still allowing some ventilation. The balance is crucial. Too sealed and the air becomes stale and possibly toxic from coal fumes. Too drafty and the cold itself becomes a health hazard. He inspects his heating arrangements carefully. The chimney has been cleaned, the grates checked for damage that might allow carbon monoxide to escape into the room. He's heard too many stories of families found dead in their beds from the silent killer of coal gas poisoning. His diet for winter requires careful planning. Fresh vegetables will be scarce and expensive, so he relies on his stores of preserved foods. Sauerkraut, made in October, provides vitamin C to prevent scurvy. Dried beans and peas offer protein. Root vegetables stored in sand in the cellar maintain some nutritional value through the cold months. He also lays in medical supplies for winter ailments. Goose grease for chest rubs, already rendered and stored in ceramic pots. Horehound candy for coughs, made by Mrs. Patterson from an old recipe. Extra supplies of willow bark tea for the inevitable increase in rheumatic complaints. One snowy evening, as Thomas sits by his fire reviewing his medical texts, he hears the toll gate bell ringing urgently. Opening the door, he finds a distraught man he doesn't recognize. "Please, sir, I need help. My wife, she's birthing and something's wrong. The midwife sent me to find Dr. Morrison, but his house is dark, gone to another call," the neighbor said. Thomas faces a dilemma. He has no training in midwifery, and childbirth complications are far beyond his knowledge. Yet he cannot turn away someone in desperate need. Bring her inside, he decides. We'll make her comfortable and I'll send for help." Soon, a wagon arrives bearing a woman in obvious distress. Thomas helps carry her to his own bed, the cleanest and most comfortable place available. The woman, Mrs. Crawford, is clearly in advanced labor but exhausted from long hours of unproductive contractions. Thomas sends the husband to find Miss Hartley, who has some obstetric training. Meanwhile, he does what he can, providing clean linens, boiling water, and offering reassurance. Miss Hartley arrives within the hour, taking charge with professional calm. She examines Mrs. Crawford and determines the baby is in an awkward position. "I can manage this," she says confidently, "but I'll need your help, Thomas." Under her direction, Thomas assists with the delivery. He boils instruments, provides clean cloths, and helps support Mrs. Crawford during the difficult contractions. The process is intense and sometimes frightening, but Miss Hartley's competence is reassuring. After 2 more hours of labor, a healthy baby boy is born. The crisis moment comes when he doesn't immediately breathe. Miss Hartley quickly clears his airways and rubs his back vigorously. After what seems an eternity but is probably only seconds, the baby gasps and begins crying lustily. "A fine boy," Miss Hartley pronounces, wrapping him warmly and placing him in his mother's arms. As 1887 draws to a close, Thomas takes stock of the year's health challenges and victories. Sitting at his desk on New Year's Eve, he writes in his journal, a practice he's maintained for 20 years. "The year has brought many trials," he writes in his careful script, "but also witnessed remarkable advances in our understanding of health and disease. The germ theory, once dismissed as fantasy, now guides our prevention efforts. Antiseptic practices have saved countless lives. New medicines offer hope where once there was only resignation." He catalogs the year's health events in his district, the scarlet fever scare that never materialized into an outbreak thanks to vigilance and quarantine, the successful treatment of wounds and injuries using carbolic acid, the lives saved through prompt action and basic medical knowledge. But he also notes the failures and frustrations. Old Mrs. Thompson, who died of pneumonia despite all efforts, the baby who succumbed to summer diarrhea before help could arrive, the continuing prevalence of tuberculosis, that slow killer for which no cure exists. The clock on the mantel chimes 11, and Thomas prepares his traditional New Year's health ritual. He brews a pot of his special tea, a mixture of elderflower, peppermint, and honey, believed to promote health in the coming year. He adds a small amount of brandy, for medicinal purposes, of course. As he sips his tea, he reads from his newest acquisition, a book on the discoveries of Robert Koch, the German scientist who has identified the bacteria responsible for tuberculosis and cholera. The text is difficult, full of scientific terminology, but Thomas perseveres, understanding that knowledge is the best weapon against disease. A knock at the door interrupts his reading. It's Dr. Morrison, returning from a call and seeing Thomas's light still burning. "Happy New Year, Thomas," the doctor greets him, accepting the offered cup of tea gratefully. "Though I suppose it's not quite midnight yet." They sit together in comfortable companionship, 2 men who have seen much suffering but also much progress in the fight against disease. "What do you think the new year will bring?" Thomas asks. Dr. Morrison considers carefully. "More discoveries, certainly. There's talk of identifying the causes of many more diseases. Some believe we'll eventually have specific treatments for specific diseases, rather than our current general approaches. Imagine a medicine that could cure tuberculosis or prevent diphtheria entirely. It seems almost too wonderful to hope for, Thomas muses. Yet think how much has changed in our lifetimes, the doctor responds. When I began practicing, we didn't even wash our hands between patients. Now, antiseptic practice saves countless lives. Who knows what marvels await? As midnight approaches, they toast the new year with the remaining tea and brandy. The bells of Reading's churches begin to ring, their bronze voices carrying across the cold night air, announcing 1888's arrival. And now, dear listener, as our tale draws to its close, we leave Thomas Hartwell in his cozy toll house, the fire burning low in the grate, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The snow has begun to fall again, gentle flakes drifting past the windows, blanketing the world in pristine white. Thomas prepares for bed with his usual careful routine. He banks the fire safely, ensuring no stray sparks can escape. He washes his hands and face one final time, the cold water shocking but invigorating. He checks that all doors are secured and windows properly latched against the winter night. In his bedroom, he kneels beside his bed for evening prayers, giving thanks for the day's blessings and asking for protection through the night. Rising, he extinguishes his candle and settles into bed, pulling the warm woolen blankets up to his chin. Outside, the toll road lies quiet under its covering of snow. No travelers will pass tonight unless driven by dire emergency. The gate stands closed, its iron bars glazed with ice, patient sentinel awaiting tomorrow's traffic. Thomas's breathing deepens and slows as sleep approaches. His last conscious thought is one of satisfaction, another day lived usefully, helping his fellow humans in their struggle against illness and suffering. In an age of great challenges but also great progress, he has played his small but vital part in the eternal human quest for health and well-being. The toll house settles into silence, save for the steady tick of the clock and the occasional crack of frost-touched timber. Snow continues to fall, soft and steady, covering the imperfections of the world with its pure white blanket. All is peaceful, all is well. And you too, dear listener, should now rest. Let the gentle rhythm of your breathing match Thomas's as he sleeps. Let the warmth of your own bed comfort you as his comforts him. The challenges of tomorrow can wait, for now, there is only peace, rest, and the healing power of sleep. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let yourself drift away into pleasant dreams, carrying with you perhaps some small wisdom from this Victorian tale, that health is precious, that knowledge and kindness can overcome ignorance and fear, and that each of us, in our own small way, can contribute to the well-being of our community. Sleep well, and may your rest be deep and restorative, as refreshing as the pure water from a deep well, as comforting as a warm fire on a cold night, as peaceful as a Victorian toll house standing quiet in the gently falling snow. Good night.